All right, so this is going to be a video all about conditional statements, or sometimes they're called conditionals. And conditionals are based on the computing principle of selection, in where you're actually making a program select something or make a decision on something based on something else. All right, so I have a flowchart right here, and it takes some input. So I'm just going to actually write input here. So it takes some input in here, and then it says if the speed is greater than 55. If this is true, so if the speed is greater than 55, it's going to print out to the screen that you're going too fast. Otherwise, if you are less than 55 or equal to 55, it would run this false right here, and it would print out this right here. This is basically a great example of how conditionals work, using something as simple as just like how fast you're driving. Now, a computer actually does if statements just like our brains do. So there's some input. In this case, it looks like the input is speed. Okay, so you can see your speedometer, and you can kind of say, if I'm going the speed limit, then I'm fine. If I'm going over the speed limit, then I'm not fine. And that's basically what this is showing right here. Another example, what you could do is if you wanted to make this flowchart a little bit more advanced, so there's an input there again. And then if the speed is greater than 55, true, then you're going too fast, just like before. But now the false, it says right here, it brings it to another kind of fork on the road with true and false. So this is another if statement here. If the speed is less than 40, if this is true, then it's too slow. Okay, false, then you're okay. So that means that you're between 40 and 55. Where the other one was kind of basic, it was just you're either going too fast or you're fine. This one actually breaks it down if you're going too slow. So you can actually make these as advanced. They just kind of build up off of each other. You can make them as advanced as you really need them to, depending on what program you're making. All right, let's go back to the code here. Okay, first thing I want to show you is actually it's called the in keyword. This is going to be the first time we went over it. We probably could have gone over this when it was in the Boolean section, but we're going to go over it now. Basically what in tests for in Python is if a certain value is in some other, either a list or a string or something like that. In this case, we're just doing strings. But it says right here, print test goo in greatest good for the greatest number. Now, if you notice, this test goo is actually right here. Now, this test goo is actually in the string right here. You can see it's in the string. So this will output true if I run this. So you print true. Okay, because it's printing basically is test goo in, this in keyword right here, in greatest good for greatest number, and it is, so it does that. Now, if I change this to let's just say test goof, so I put an F in there, it's going to output false because there is no test goof in the greatest good for the greatest number. Okay. All right, so I'm going to comment this out here so we can go to the next example. So it says here, print 1, 2, 3 in ABC. So remember, anytime you see in like this, it's going to be outputting a true or false. So is 1, 2, 3 in ABC? I'm going to run this. It should output false because 1, 2, 3 is not in ABC. But if I wrote something like if BC is in ABC, it should come out to be true. If I change this to be just B, it should come out to be true as well because there is a B in there. So if I do something like put in an AC right here, if you notice there is no AC directly in there, there's an A and a B and a C, but there is no AC, so this is going to output false, as you can see right there. Order also matters, so if I like switch the order to CBA, it's not going to work. It has to be the exact match for the end. You can kind of imagine how that would be useful with doing conditionals. And if you can't imagine that, I'm going to show you examples as we go. Here's the next one right here, list. We have apple, banana, and cherry. Okay, if I run this with list, the only thing that's uncommented, nothing's going to show up because list is just storing, this list right here is being stored in list variable somewhere in the memory, but it's not actually printing to the screen. So what I'm going to do is print, is banana in list? It is, so this should output true. Okay, but then this one is grape in list, run this, false. Okay, this is running the in the keyword with lists, and this is running the in keyword with strings. You could see that they're very similar in those regards. The one thing you have to know with lists is it has to match exactly. So if I wrote like BANA here for this first one, let me comment the second one out here. You'll notice that it outputs false. It has to match the entire element that's in that list. Okay, so it has to be banana, and then it'll actually output true. Okay, so that's the in keyword. Next thing we're going to go over is if statements. So we're going to make a really basic if statement here. I'm going to say A is equal to true. Okay, so A is just a variable. It's a Boolean variable, and so it's going to be equal to true. And I'm going to say if A, this means if true, then print A. So now I'm actually going to do print A in if statement. So you know exactly where it's actually printing the A from. Run this. It says true in if statement. So right here it says in if statement. I'm just trying to show the location. It's inside of the if statement. That's what that represents. When I comment this out and run it again, it's going to put true in if statement. Okay, because there is a true inside. I'll write inside if statement. Okay. Now, this is because A is true. If I changed A to false here and run this, nothing's going to happen because the if statement never runs. Okay, the if statement is only going to run if this first part is true. In this case, A is false, so it's not going to work. Okay, now what I'm going to do is run an if-else statement to kind of make up for this. So A is false, but I still want something to print to the screen. So what you can do is you can have an else statement, and it's kind of like a catch-all. Like if the if statement doesn't run, the else will run. Okay, I'm going to print A and then inside of else statement. Okay, run this. Now if you notice, A is false, so the if A is true, it's not, so it's not going to run any of this right here. It's not going to run line 17. It skips right to 18 and just prints out what's here. Print A, which is false, inside of else statement. So if you notice, this is the else statement right here. Okay. Now, this is a very, very basic example, but if I wanted, I could have been, I don't know, a little bit more involved with this. Let's just change A to be 3, so now A is an integer. Okay, so now I can say if A is greater than 2, print 2, it's going to print 2 here. I'm actually going to have it print A is greater than 2, and then inside if statement. Okay, this will say, actually we'll just keep this. We'll just keep this there for now. Okay, so if you notice, A is 3, if A is greater than 2. So this would output as a true. Okay, so this would be a true for the if statement, which means line 17 does run. A is greater than 2, so it printed out the 2 there, and then it says inside if statement. Okay. The else did not run, but I can make the else run if I change this to like a 1 or something that's less than 2, or equal to 2. I could even change it to a 2 there. If A is greater than 2, it's not, so it's not going to run line 17. It's going to go straight to this else here. And I'm going to write less than or equal to 2. And then inside else statement, I run this, and then it says true inside else statement. So it printed true because this is true here. Okay, probably shouldn't actually have that. I just kind of want to show you. Let's just do A is greater than 2, and then it says false inside else statement. Okay, I could also make it just print A, and it's going to say 2, or sorry, it's going to say 1 inside of else statement there. Okay, so that's how else statements work. Next thing I'm going to do is show you else ifs. So if you notice right here, it says if else statement. So I'm going to take all this code, put it down here, because now we're dealing with else ifs. Okay. The shortcut for else ifs is just ELIF. And when you have an else if, you have to have some kind of condition afterwards. Okay. So what we're going to do is, let's just keep this one here. We're going to say if it's greater than 0, I'm going to say positive value. Okay. Else, if A is less than 0, I'm going to say print negative value. Now, if I wanted, I could just say, have another else if. It says if it's equal to 0, then it's 0, but I can just do the else here and just say print 0. Okay, so now what it's going to do is A is 1. So it's going to go through here. Is 1 greater than 0? It is, so it's going to print positive value. It's never going to run the else if. It's never going to run the else, because that first if basically gets activated and run. The else if's not going to run. Again, the else isn't going to run unless we change this value right here. So what if I change this to a negative 3? Okay, now A is not greater than 0, so it'll skip this if right here, and then it's going to go to the next if right here. Else if A is less than 0. A is less than 0, it's going to print the negative value. It will never run this right here. So let's test this out here. Let's go with the 1 first. That's a positive value. If I change this to a negative 3, negative value, and if I just change it to 0, it's going to print out 0. Okay, so that's basically a brief intro to conditionals. Make sure you do the activity to kind of cement your understanding a little bit more so you can actually apply what I just showed you. If you have any questions about anything in this video, let me know.